My name is Shawn. I go by he, him. I was placed in foster care when I was 3. I was adopted at 6. And then I was placed back into foster care at 9 due to abuse. And during when I was placed back into foster care, that's really when I started to figure out who I was, my sexuality. And I came out as gay. I didn't come out as gay until I was 18. Um, and Now I identify as trans mask. Um, so yeah, I'm 23 years old. I currently go to FAMU. I'm majoring in sociology and minoring in social work.
What do you do for fun?
I love music. I love to sing and dance around. I love art. I like to read. And then I spend a lot of time with my dog, Cleo.
Did anyone offer services or supports to help your family in accepting your identity? And would you have been open to receiving those services?
My family was not accepting of me being LGBTQ at all. So when there was instances where I would hint that I was gay, or they would see like how I would act towards women or anything like that, how the interactions were different than how I would with other people, they would kind of put a stop to it, or they would have me like talk to the youth pastor at church or something, or so if there was services available and they were more accepting, I definitely would have accepted any guidance at all on that.
Do you think your family would have accepted the services or been open to it?
I don't think they would have, but I feel like they should have. I feel like all foster families or families in general should accept any services that could help their child.
Did people have conversations with you about your identity? And if so, how was it handled?
I did have a few conversations with people, some positive, some negative. So I guess I'll give you an example of both. The negative would be the church, when it was coming out and how I was behaving and acting. They would say I was acting gay. So they would have me talk to like the youth pastor, and then they would do like lessons on what my identity was and how my identity was in Christ, and how participating in anything LGBTQ was a sin. So that kind of really deteriorated my identity and made me feel like, okay, I can't be myself. I have to be what the church is saying and what is right by God and by what my family is saying. So I guess that kind of made me hide my identity. But I did have like people, like some of my teachers at school, with the Gay Straight Alliance, like different clubs like that, where they were accepting and let me, just express who I was and act myself, be who I was, which was really encouraging, having that type of role model and saying like, it's okay. At the time, I was not going by he, him, or trans mask, but my friends and like my teachers and stuff, they would always ask like, oh, do you like, because I remember questioning, like saying, oh, maybe one day I do want to like be a man or like transition to a man. And they never really shut it down. They would just listen to what I was saying. They would be like, oh, like you would be good looking, or like, oh, like that'd be really cool. Like, what would you change your name to? Or like, you want us to call you any, like, like they would just ask questions. And that was the biggest thing for me, is that you're showing that you want to attempt to understand and want to attempt to care about who I am.
How has other aspects of your identity, so racial, cultural, religious, and other identity aspects, impacted your gender identity? We're thinking about this both like internally, so your self-conception, as well as externally in care and in systems.
Being Black and gay is is definitely interesting because there's already all so much like stigmatism with being Black and, you know, having to stand up for yourself and or not doing too much or you know what I'm saying. So adding gay in there, no one really accepts us as is, so it's just another level. And me trying to find ways to let people know like, okay, I'm just me. Like you can just accept me for me. And then with my, so for example, like with my birth family, they where I'm from, like no one is gay. You don't talk about being gay. That's like, oh, like they'll call you like pretty boy, you know, just very derogatory terms, and make you feel smaller. Like, for example, my mom, like with my little brother, he's not allowed to play with stuffed animals because those are girly. It was definitely hard coming out to them in that area because no one is accepting and everybody looks at you differently and starts to treat you differently. And you just kind of lose that respect. So I guess in that part, I kind of had to, because I am transmasc, I had to like present myself as tough and like, oh, I'm a strong male. You don't have like, I can stand up for myself. I can take whatever you're gonna give me because that's who I am.
How has the intersection of your identities been honored or affirmed? Has there been conflict?
There has been conflict, but there's also is I've seen both sides. So I am a part of Florida Youth Shine, a youth-led advocacy group here in Florida. They all of us have had lived experiences in care. So we all come together and we try and put different policies together. We represent it in the legislation and go to the Capitol building and try and just get things changed through the system for future youth that are in care and for the kids that are in care now.
Okay. And
Um,
they've been supportive space for you.
they were the main people that pushed me to start embracing being called Shawn, being called he him, because I didn't really come out as transmasc until I was actually 21. So not it was only 2 years ago, and it was because of them saying like, who do you want to be? What do you want to be called? Um, so just having that support with them was a big push, and showing myself that I am accepted. It may not be by everybody, but I have my small circle of people who do love me and appreciate me for who I am. So the conflict has been with my adoptive family and with my birth family as well, or just people who knew me before my transition. I was presented as the very feminine, girly, loves to sing in church, loves to do all these things that just wasn't how I am now, my true self. And so they won't call me he, him. They call me she, her. Um, just it's just very they're not as accepting. It's not as welcoming. I always feel like I have to like have my guard up a little bit. I have to put aside my own feelings and what I want and just, you know, go along with what they want because I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable and feel like um, it's a task for them to just treat me like the way I should be. So just for the acceptance, I'll just let it be and just accept what it is.
Have you been asked what you want and need to feel supported in your identity?
I think in care, it was lacking, but like I said before with 40 You Shine, I think they were the biggest support system in that. Like for example, the director of Florida You Shine, I was wanting to change my name to Shawn, like legally, and she helped me find a lawyer who could help me with the paperwork on how to do that. Um, and the lady sat with me and just talked with me and helped, literally sat and filled out every line. And then told me where to go in the courtroom. I never got around to it, but I know the steps that I need to take because Florida You Shine helped me and point me in the right direction and doing that. So I think they were a big step in that. So I would say them is like they are the biggest help I have.
Do you feel like others took the time to support you or get to know what you needed related to your identity or identities?
Not really. No, not at all. I think it was just like, this is a phase. We'll
Right,
just let Shawn do what they want right now.
right.
But at the end of the day, they think they know me better than myself. So I have to continue to prove that this is me. So
If socially or medically transitioning, were you allowed to take the lead in that process, or did adults in your life make assumptions about what your transition would look like?
I wanted to start testosterone. I remember talking about it, and wanting to get the chest surgery. But I didn't really have that support or anyone saying like that it was okay, because it was looked at as a sin. So I didn't start testosterone or anything until I could financially do it myself.
Sure.
Um, and my family they still didn't even know that I was taking it, because I was afraid of how they would react, and how um like detrimental that would be to our relationship. So but I think that um, kids in care should have the opportunity, if they have asked about it or are interested in it, or even present themselves as masked or anything. It should maybe be asked, or find a way to ask, hey, like, have you thought about this? If so, here's some resources or anything. I'm here if you want to talk about it. I think that would be really cool to do.
During your experience in care, in the system, any system, were there people that you felt like you could trust, places that you felt were safe, or places that you felt you could fully be authentic?
For me, that was my main constant for me, because I did move around, and then I didn't really have that trust with my family. So for me, the most constant like support um I had was at school. So I feel like the people at school and my teachers, and then people in the clubs were the main help that I had, and like stability that I was presented.
And like you felt that you could trust them to like hold the knowledge of who you were.
Yeah, hold my knowledge, not go and tell everybody. Just if I needed to have a conversation, or if I was struggling, or even just a relationship advice, I knew I could go to them and just sit down and be myself and just talk, without any judgments, without them saying, "Oh, well, here's how you should fix it." Just listening to me and letting me get it out.
Have you filed a grievance for any instances of mistreatment on the basis of your gender identity, gender expression, or sexual orientation? And if so, what came of that process?
I didn't really file like a formal grievance, but I had an instance at work, at my previous job, where I was being called he him. Well, that's how I was presented to the position, was as Shawn Mitchell, as he him. Um and one of my supervisors was very religious, and he was just very hateful towards the fact that I was LGBTQ, and we would be in meetings, and one of my supervisors would just call me like, "Oh, Shawn, you're so funny. Like, isn't he the best?" And the other supervisor would jump in and be like, "Yeah, she's the best. Don't you just love Ashanti?" No one's calling me Ashanti. No one's doing that. So he would just go the extra mile to um like bother me. And I remember going to one of my supervisors and asking like, what is up about this? Is there anything we can do? Did I do something to him? And she kind of just dismissed it, and never really went any further with it. But I remember I still, like, I was very anxious. I didn't want to have meetings with him. I didn't want to have communication. I was always on edge. And then it got to the point where he would continue to do it and I would just let it slide. And then eventually, though, some of my coworkers did step up and would correct him right after he would say something, which was really cool. but it still wasn't enough to the fact, like they wouldn't do it all the time. And I didn't have the ability to stand up for myself and fear that it would just, nothing would come from it, honestly. So that was, I think that's the most like crazy experience I've had with that.
Recommendations you have of thoughts for system improvements, things that should stay the way they are, things that should stop happening. It could look like really anything, but looking for a few recommendations from you based on your experience.
My main wish or want would be, I guess it's like two parts to it, but one would be for parents, foster, it doesn't matter if you have a child that is LGBTQ, not to take them and scare them with the church.
Mm.
I think that was what really made me hide myself and not want to be who I was, because I was scared that I'm going to go to hell. I'm not going to be with the rest of my family forever. I'm not going to live a fulfilling life because I'm gay. And I didn't like that it was just, the religion was pushed onto me so hardly, that it made me scared to be myself. So I feel like instead of taking them to the churches and talking to the youth pastors or to their Christian therapists and stuff, we should have more LGBTQ representation, whether it's mentors, whether it's more foster parents, therapists, because I know there is like LGBTQ therapists that are out there and stuff. So maybe collecting more of them or hiring more of them in the system for references for kids like this, so that they have somebody to go to and talk to, just to learn information about what things are, because there's so much to the LGBTQ community that people just don't know about. So I think that would be my main wish. And then also going into the LGBT community, like if there's like Pride Fest or something like that, and maybe having like a booth up for like to learn about foster care and stuff like that, so that they have the opportunity to learn about it, and that we have more families like that in care. Because I feel like it would just be awesome, especially because, you know, so many times like they want to adopt kids, and then it gets shut down, or they get looked at a certain way and the process takes forever. But they could honestly just give their hearts and their homes to a child that's in need now, and then, you know, the process could be go from there. So I think having more representation in the foster system would be my last one.
Any other recommendations, changes, things that are going well that you've appreciated, or things that would have been helpful for you to have had? Sometimes this is even like transitioning and transitioning out of care, and like, did you leave with the documents that you needed or with access to care that you needed?
Yeah, I do wish I would have had more access to care, and doctors specifically that knew about transitioning, and the right medication to take, and more therapists that specialize specifically in LGBTQ rights and stuff. Because I feel like if I would have had like the health aspect behind it, and just more knowledge on what I should be doing with my body, how I should be taking care of myself and things like that, I think that would have been definitely beneficial for me.
Did you work with, and this might be a do you work with, an organization, or were you referred to services that were affirming, and how so? So this could be like healthcare services, but could also just be services in general.
The services I was told about was through Planned Parenthood. And then I talked to some doctors there. And that was okay. They were nice people. I think I wish there was like, I didn't know of any clinics or anything like that, that I wish I would have known about here in Florida. Yeah. So I guess that would be, but I did go to Planned Parenthood to start the testosterone.
Did you experience any organizations that claimed to be affirming, but in practice were not? How so?
I don't think I had I don't think I had that experience. I mean, my regular like pediatrician and doctors, I guess, they didn't know. I remember going in and asking like questions about starting testosterone, and they did not know anything about it. They said that they would have to get back to me with a referral on a different doctor with that, and they never did. So I guess just my pediatrician, my regular doctors.
Any other just final thoughts that you want to share?
My main, like I said, my main wish is that eventually we can find a way to get the LGBT community more representation and more support, especially for these kids in the system, because they're just so lost. And I remember myself being in care and just wanting someone to tell me it was okay to be myself. So I'm hoping that we're able to find a way to get more representation and more support in that area.